The Duke of Blackthorn asked the same question to every woman who entered his library. Why do you want me? Not why did they wish to marry? Not what qualities did they admire? Not whether they understood the duties of a duchess. Only that one sharp, uncomfortable question. Why do you want me? By noon, 30 women had answered. By noon, 30 women had failed. The First Lady said, "Because your grace is the most powerful gentleman in the county." The Duke replied, "Then you want my title." The second said, "Because I believe I could make you happy." He said, "Then you want the glory of repairing a broken man." The third said, "Because my family and yours would be well matched." He said, "Then you want an arrangement." The fourth said nothing for too long and burst into tears. He dismissed her gently. The fifth said she had loved him from afar. He asked what colour his eyes were. She answered incorrectly. By the 15th woman, the mothers waiting in the yellow drawing room had begun whispering that Duke Adrian Blackthorn was not seeking a bride. He was seeking an excuse to reject one. By the 24th, the servants had slowed their footsteps near the library door. By the 30th, Lady Ophelia Cranwick, the most beautiful woman in the room and the favourite of his family council, leaned forward with a perfect smile and said, "Because I would be loyal to you until death, Your Grace." The Duke looked at the untouched glass beside his chair. Then back at her. "How convenient," he said. Lady Ophelia's smile faltered. The Duke rang the bell. The butler opened the door. "Lady Ophelia may return to her mother." A murmur passed through the hall when she came out pale and furious. Then the Duke's aunt, Lady Morwenna Blackthorn, entered without waiting to be summoned. She was a tall woman, dressed in mourning silk, though no one had died recently enough to require it. She had ruled Blackthorn House for 6 years, ever since the Duke's mysterious illness began. Her face carried the calm authority of someone who believed every room should obey before she spoke. "Adrian," she said softly, "this has gone far enough." He leaned back in his chair. "Has it? 30 ladies have presented themselves, all respectable, all suitable, all hungry." She sighed. "A duke cannot expect to be loved without being wanted. A knife may be wanted too." Her face tightened. "Must every kindness be treated as an attack?" "Kindness?" He smiled faintly. "You invited 30 women into my house to ask which one would best look sorrowful beside my coffin." The library went still. Lady Morwenna's eyes moved quickly to the glass beside him. So quickly most men would have missed it. Adrian did not. "You are tired," she said. "I am always tired. That is the point, is it not?" Before she could answer, the butler returned and bowed. "There is one more, Your Grace." Lady Morwenna turned sharply. "One more?" The butler looked uncomfortable. "A Miss Clara Wren." "I invited no Miss Wren." "No, my lady." She came as companion to Mrs. Ashbell, who accompanied her daughter. Mrs. Ashbell insists the young woman spoke out of turn in the drawing room and should be removed, but Miss Wren requested to answer His Grace's question. Lady Morwenna's face hardened. "A companion?" "Absolutely not." The Duke's eyes sharpened. "Send her in. Adrian, send her in." Lady Morwenna held his gaze for a moment, then gave the smallest nod of surrender. The butler opened the door. Miss Clara Wren entered without silk, jewels, or expectation. She wore a plain dark dress, carefully brushed but old at the cuffs. Her gloves were mended. Her bonnet ribbon had faded from blue to grey. She was neither timid nor bold in the usual drawing-room way. She looked like a woman who had spent her life being underestimated and had found it useful. She curtsied. "Your Grace." Adrian studied her. "You are not on my list." "No." "You are not of rank." "No." "You are not here to marry me." "No." Lady Morwenna's voice cooled. "Then this is a waste of His Grace's time." Clara looked at the Duke, not at the aunt. "I believe His Grace has wasted much of his time already." The butler nearly dropped the door handle. Adrian's mouth twitched. "Sit down, Miss Wren." "I prefer to stand." "Afraid?" Yes, the answer surprised him. Of me? Not chiefly. Lady Morwenna's expression sharpened. The Duke leaned forward. Then answer the question. Why do you want me? Clara was silent for one breath. Then she said, I do not want you. A faint rustle came from the hallway where someone was listening. Lady Morwenna smiled coldly. There, we are finished. But Clara continued. I want to know why you are still alive. The room went silent. The Duke did not move. Lady Morwenna did. Only slightly. Her hand tightened around the back of the nearest chair. Adrian's gaze fixed on Clara. Explain. Clara looked at the glass beside his chair, then at the small medicine bottle on the writing desk, then at the tray of sugared almonds no one had touched. You are not dying naturally. Lady Morwenna stepped forward. That is an outrageous statement. Clara ignored her. You have been weak for years, but not steadily. You decline after meals taken inside this house, improve when traveling, then worsen when you return. Your lips are pale, but your eyes are too clear for the illness society claims you have. You favor your right hand because of tremors, yet you held a pen steadily when dismissing Lady Ophelia, and the glass beside you has been refilled twice, though you have not drunk from it once. The Duke's expression changed. Who told you that? No one. Then how do you know? My father was a physician. Was? Clara's face tightened. He is dead. Lady Morwenna said, a tragic story, I am certain, but hardly proof. Clara finally looked at her. My father died 3 weeks after warning Duke Blackthorne by letter that his illness was no illness. Adrian went still. What was your father's name? Dr. Elias Wren. The name struck the Duke like a door opening in a sealed house. Lady Morwenna laughed softly. I recall the man. Unstable, ambitious, dismissed for making wild accusations. Clara reached into her glove and withdrew a folded paper. My father expected someone would say that. She placed the paper on the desk. Adrian did not touch it at first. He looked at Lady Morwenna. She looked perfectly calm now. Too calm. The Duke unfolded the letter. The handwriting was old, sharp, familiar. He read in silence. Then again. Clara watched his face. For the first time since she entered, the mask of the cold Duke cracked. Only a little. Enough, he read aloud. Your Grace, forgive the bluntness. You are not sick. You are being managed. The doses are small enough to preserve breath, large enough to weaken will. Someone near you does not want you dead yet. They want you obedient. The butler inhaled sharply. Lady Morwenna's voice turned to steel. That letter is a forgery. Clara said, then why did my father die after writing it? People die, Miss Wren. Yes, Clara replied, but not everyone dies with his study searched, his notes missing, and his daughter followed for 6 years by men who ask whether she still keeps her father's papers. Adrian slowly lowered the letter. Why come now? Because I heard you were choosing a wife. Lady Morwenna's eyes narrowed. Clara turned back to the Duke. And because if my father was right, they do not need you well. They only need you married. The words changed the temperature of the room. Adrian stood. It was not easy. For a moment he swayed. Clara saw it. So did Lady Morwenna. The aunt moved toward him with practiced concern. Sit down. He stepped away from her hand. No. That one word shook the room more than anger would have. Lady Morwenna's face hardened. Adrian, this girl is dangerous. The Duke looked at Clara. Yes, he said. I am beginning to hope so. A sound came from the hallway. A woman gasped. The door had not been fully closed. Beyond it stood Lady Ophelia, pale and furious, with 3 rejected ladies behind her and Mrs. Ashbel clutching her pearls. Lady Morwenna turned sharply. Leave at once. But the damage had been done. The question had changed. It was no longer why 30 women wanted the Duke. It was why the 31st woman had asked why he was still breathing. Adrian looked at the butler. "Lock the outer gates." Lady Morwenna's face went white. "Adrian, no one leaves Blackthorn House until I know who has been keeping me half dead." Clara's eyes flicked toward the medicine bottle. "Then begin with the person who prepares that." The Duke followed her gaze. Lady Morwenna smiled, but this time the smile did not reach her eyes. "My dear boy," she said, "I prepare everything you take." And that was the moment every woman in the hallway stopped breathing. The medicine bottle sat on the desk between them. Small, dark, ordinary. For 6 years, Duke Adrian Blackthorn had taken from it every morning and every night, because physicians told him obedience might preserve his life. Now he stared at it, as if it had been speaking all along, and he had only just learned the language. Lady Morwenna reached for the bottle. Clara moved first. She took it from the desk and held it behind her. The room froze. No companion touched a duke's medicine. No poor woman snatched anything before Lady Morwenna Blackthorn. The aunt's eyes turned cold. "Give that to me." Clara's voice remained steady. "No, you are interfering in medical care, and you are too eager to recover the evidence." Lady Morwenna looked at Adrian. "You cannot permit this." The Duke's face was pale, but his voice was clear. "I can permit many things today." The butler still stood near the door, stunned. Adrian turned to him. "Mr. Vale, send for Dr. Harcourt from the village." "Not my London physician, not anyone recommended by my aunt. Harcourt." Lady Morwenna said quickly, "A village doctor is not qualified for your condition." "Excellent. Then he will not know the lie well enough to repeat it." Clara watched the Duke carefully. There it was again, a mind sharp enough to cut through fog, trapped inside a body others had kept uncertain. She had expected a weak man. Instead, she found a caged one. The butler bowed and left. The door shut. Lady Morwenna turned on Clara. "You have no idea what you have done." Clara's hands were cold around the bottle, but her voice did not shake. "I have asked the wrong question in the right room. You have ruined yourself. I was already poor. You have endangered your life. My father's blood taught me that silence does not buy safety." The Duke looked at her sharply. "Blood?" Clara realized her mistake. She had said too much. Lady Morwenna heard it too. "Careful, Miss Wren. Drama may impress His Grace, but accusations require proof." Clara reached into the small pocket sewn inside her sleeve and removed another folded paper. "My father kept copies." Adrian stepped forward. "What kind of copies?" "Household accounts, prescriptions, food orders, staff changes, letters he was not meant to see." Lady Morwenna laughed. "A provincial physician's daughter claims to possess the secrets of Blackthorn House." "No," Clara said. "I claim my father died because he understood them." She placed the papers beside the first letter. Adrian began to read. The first page showed dates. The second listed household purchases. The third showed the dismissal of 2 nurses, 1 cook and 1 footman during the first year of the Duke's illness. The fourth held a line written in Dr. Wren's hand. "His Grace improves when away from Blackthorn, worsens only under household routine. Suspect deliberate management." Adrian's fingers tightened. "I was told travel exhausted me." Clara shook her head. "Travel freed you." Lady Morwenna's voice softened. This time, she spoke not like a villain, but like a grieving guardian. "My dear Adrian, you were young when the fever began. Proud, restless, angry at weakness. Your mind invented enemies because illness humiliated you." He looked at her. "You told me that for 6 years. Because it was true. Then why am I afraid to believe my own memory?" The question silenced her. Clara saw it then. This was the second poison. Not in bottles, in words. For years they had not only weakened his body, they had trained him to mistrust himself. Adrian looked at Clara. "You said they needed me married. Why?" Clara hesitated. Lady Morwenna watched her. The Duke noticed. Answer. Clara took a breath. My father believed there was an inheritance clause attached to the Northern Mines and the Blackthorn shipping shares. If your Grace died unmarried, those assets would be audited by the Crown before passing to your nearest male relative. But if you married and signed a settlement first, the estate could be redirected through trustees. Adrian's face hardened. My trustees. Chosen while you were ill. Lady Morwenna's face became unreadable. Adrian whispered, My cousin Silas. Clara nodded. Lord Silas Blackthorn appears often in the accounts. Lady Morwenna said, Silas has managed what you were too weak to manage. Adrian turned to her. And who made me weak? No one answered. A knock came at the door. Not the butler. Too confident. Lord Silas Blackthorn entered before he was invited. He was younger than Adrian by 3 years, elegantly dressed, handsome in the careless way of men who have never been denied warmth or credit. He carried a riding crop and a charming smile. The smile vanished when he saw Clara holding the medicine bottle. What is this? Adrian leaned against the desk, but did not sit. A question I should have asked years ago. Silas looked at Lady Morwenna. Only briefly. Enough! Clara saw the glance. Adrian saw Clara seeing it. Silas laughed. Good God, Adrian, you cannot mean to take counsel from a servant. Clara said, I am not a servant. No, worse, a poor woman with papers. The insult did not touch her. She had heard sharper things from duller men. Adrian's voice was cold. Choose your next words carefully. Silas looked surprised. Not because of the threat, because the Duke sounded stronger than expected. You need rest, Silas said. So I am often told. Lady Morwenna moved between them. This is becoming undignified. Miss Wren should be removed. The guests dismissed. Your Grace should retire. Clara looked at the Duke. This is how it works, is it not? Whenever you ask a question too clearly, they make you tired. Adrian stared at her. A memory moved across his face. Arguments ending in sudden weakness. Letters he did not remember signing. Mornings after long sleeps with decisions already made. He turned to Silas. Did I approve the Northern trustees? Silas smiled. You signed the documents. Did I understand them? You are a duke. Men assume you understand what you sign. Adrian's hand flexed. Clara stepped in before anger could be used against him. Where are the original papers? Silas looked at her with contempt. You have a bold mouth, and you have an answer you are avoiding. His smile thinned. The estate office. Adrian called toward the door. Mr. Vale. The butler entered. Your Grace? Bring the estate office keys. Lady Morwenna said, The office is in disorder. This is not the hour. It is precisely the hour. The butler hesitated. My lady usually keeps the keys. Adrian turned slowly. Lady Morwenna's eyes closed for half a second. Then she reached into the black silk purse at her waist and removed a ring of keys. She handed them over with perfect grace. Too perfect. Clara's gaze dropped to the key ring. One is missing. Everyone turned to her. Lady Morwenna's expression sharpened. How could you possibly know that? Clara pointed. The marks on the ring show 5 keys. There are 4. Adrian looked. She was right. Silas said, This is absurd. Clara looked at him. Then opened the estate office. Silas laughed. Gladly. They walked as a group through Blackthorn House. Word had spread. The 30 rejected ladies stood in corners and doorways. Their mothers whispered behind fans. Servants watched from shadowed halls. Every eye followed the Duke, the poor companion, the aunt, and the cousin. By the time they reached the estate office, Blackthorn House had become a theatre. Silas inserted the key. It did not fit. The butler tried another, then another. None opened the door. Lady Morwenna said, The lock must have jammed. Clara knelt near the handle. Someone changed it. Adrian looked at Silas. Where is the new key? Silas's smile vanished. "I do not know." From behind them, a nervous voice spoke. "I do." Everyone turned. Lady Ophelia Cranwick stood at the end of the corridor. Her earlier humiliation had burned through her beauty and left something sharper behind. She raised her chin. Lord Silas dropped it in the yellow drawing room after the 27th interview. Silas went pale. Lady Morwenna hissed, "Ophelia." The young lady looked at her. "You promised me he would choose me if I answered correctly." The corridor went silent. Adrian's gaze moved to her. "What answer was that?" Lady Ophelia swallowed. "That I would be loyal until death." Clara's blood chilled. Adrian looked at Lady Morwenna. "Until whose death?" No one spoke. Ophelia's voice shook now. "I thought it meant romantic devotion. Then I heard Miss Wren, and I remembered Lord Silas saying a wife need only be loyal for a little while." Silas stepped toward her. "Be quiet." Adrian moved faster than anyone expected. He caught Silas by the arm, not violently. Firmly enough to remind the corridor that illness had hidden the Duke, not erased him. "The key," Adrian said. Silas tried to laugh, but no sound came. Clara's eyes moved to his riding glove. A small brass edge showed at the cuff. "There." The butler seized Silas's wrist and removed the hidden key. This time the estate office opened. Inside, the desk drawers had been emptied. The ledgers were gone. For one terrible second, Lady Morwenna looked almost victorious. Then Clara noticed the fireplace. No ash, no burned paper, no signs of destruction. "They did not burn them," she said. Adrian turned. "How do you know?" "Men burn evidence in panic. These people had 6 years. They hid it somewhere they could still use it." Lady Morwenna smiled faintly. Such imagination. Clara looked around the room. Then she saw the portrait. The old Duke of Blackthorn, Adrian's father, glared down from the far wall. His hand rested on a carved black box. In the painting, the box bore a silver thorn. On the real shelf beneath the painting sat the same black box. Clara crossed to it. Silas lunged. The butler stopped him. Adrian opened the box. Inside were no ledgers. Only a single envelope addressed to him in Dr. Elias Wren's handwriting. Clara's breath caught. Adrian broke the seal. Inside was one sentence. "If I am dead, ask why your aunt needed 30 brides before she found one willing not to ask questions." Adrian looked up slowly. At Lady Morwenna, at Lord Silas, at the crowded corridor, then at Clara. The Duke finally understood. The 30 women had not failed his question. They had been tested for obedience. And the 31st had ruined everything by asking why he was still alive. No one left Blackthorn House after the envelope was opened. Not the 30 rejected ladies. Not their mothers. Not Lord Silas. Not Lady Morwenna. The outer gates had been locked by the Duke's order, and every servant in the house seemed to understand that something larger than scandal had entered the corridors. Truth had arrived late, but it had arrived hungry. Duke Adrian stood inside the estate office with Dr. Wren's final message in his hand. "If I am dead, ask why your aunt needed 30 brides before she found one willing not to ask questions." Lady Morwenna's face had become perfectly calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that does not belong to innocence, but to someone rearranging lies faster than fear can expose them. She looked at the watching guests in the corridor. "My nephew is unwell. You can all see it. This display is a symptom of the very instability we have tried so hard to conceal." Clara stepped forward. "No, his weakness was concealed because it served you. His clarity was called instability because it threatened you." Silas laughed sharply. "Listen to her, a physician's daughter playing judge in a duke's house." Adrian folded the letter. "Be grateful she is playing judge. I am in the mood for execution." The corridor went silent. He did not mean the word literally. Everyone understood that. But for the first time in years, the Duke of Blackthorn sounded like the master of Blackthorn House. Lady Morwenna looked at him with something almost like sorrow. "My dear boy, you are embarrassing yourself before half the county." "No," Adrian said. "For once, I am embarrassing the right people." A commotion sounded from the stairs. Dr. Harcourt arrived breathless, coat damp from travel, medical bag in hand. He was an older village physician with tired eyes and no patience for aristocratic performance. The butler led him forward. "Your Grace, Dr. Harcourt." Adrian pointed to the medicine bottle still in Clara's possession. "Examine that." Lady Morwenna spoke quickly. "This is improper. His Grace's medical care is private." Dr. Harcourt looked at her. "So is death, my lady. Yet people keep arranging it in public." A few servants lowered their heads to hide reactions. Clara handed him the bottle. Harcourt opened it, smelled it briefly, and frowned. He did not announce details. He did not dramatize. He simply looked at the Duke with grave understanding. "You have taken this regularly." "Under instruction." "Whose?" Adrian looked at Lady Morwenna. "My aunt's household physician." Harcourt's mouth tightened. This would explain much. Lady Morwenna lifted her chin. "Explain clearly, Doctor." He looked at the gathered witnesses. "It contains substances that do not belong in restorative medicine. Enough to weaken a man over time. Enough to make judgment appear unreliable. Enough to keep him dependent." The corridor erupted in whispers. Silas stepped back. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Not from weakness, from fury held under discipline. Clara watched him carefully. The danger now was not that he would collapse, it was that he would spend his strength destroying them before the law could. She spoke softly. "Your Grace." He looked at her. "Let them answer where everyone can hear." That steadied him. He turned to the corridor. "Bring all guests to the great hall." Lady Morwenna's eyes narrowed. "Adrian, you wanted me to choose a wife before witnesses. Now you shall enjoy a different ceremony." Within minutes, the great hall filled. The 30 women who had been rejected stood in uneasy clusters with their mothers. Servants lined the walls. Lord Silas stood near the hearth, watched closely by 2 footmen. Lady Morwenna sat in a high-backed chair as if she still ruled the room by posture alone. Clara stood near the Duke, plain dress among silk, poor gloves among diamonds. Adrian remained standing. No one expected that. For years, everyone had seen him seated, pale, managed, escorted, excused. Now he stood before them all. "I asked 30 women today why they wanted me," he began. The women shifted uncomfortably. Some wanted title, some wanted power, some wanted rescue, some wanted the romance of marrying a dying duke. His gaze moved to Lady Ophelia. She lowered her eyes. "Some were told what answer would please me." Lady Ophelia trembled. Then, to her credit, she stepped forward. "I was told to say I would be loyal until death," she said. Lady Morwenna said His Grace wanted devotion. Lord Silas said the marriage would be brief, but rewarding. A shocked murmur moved through the room. Silas snapped. "You foolish girl." Adrian's voice cut across his. "Enough." Silas stopped. Clara saw it then. The structure of the lie had depended on everyone believing Adrian, too weak to command silence. That belief was dying faster than the poison in his blood. Adrian turned to Lady Morwenna. "Why 30 women?" She smiled coldly. "Because you rejected 29. "No, because you needed a bride who wanted my name more than my life, a woman vain enough to accept a dying husband, obedient enough not to question my medicine, and ambitious enough to sign whatever settlement you placed before her after the wedding." Lady Morwenna said nothing. The Duke continued. "If I died unmarried, several Blackthorn assets would face Crown review before succession. If I married, trustees could claim control through settlement and widow's management." Silas said, "This is speculation." Clara lifted the papers from Dr. Wren's packet. Then explain the draft settlement, naming Lord Silas as chief trustee. The butler took the paper and handed it to the Duke. Adrian read the signature line. Blank. Waiting for him. His voice hardened. This was prepared before I chose a bride. No one spoke. Clara looked at Lady Morwenna. You never wanted him married for happiness. You wanted him married for paperwork. Lady Morwenna's expression finally cracked. Do not speak as if you understand what it takes to preserve a great house. Clara answered quietly. I understand what it takes to preserve a life. My father died doing it. Lady Morwenna's eyes flashed. Your father was a meddler. Clara went still. Adrian turned slowly. What did you say? Lady Morwenna realized her mistake. But Silas, panicking, made a worse one. He should have minded his place. Clara's face went pale. The great hall held its breath. Adrian's voice became dangerous. And what was his place? Silas looked trapped. Lady Morwenna closed her eyes. Clara answered for him. Far enough away from the truth to survive. A sound came from the back of the hall. The butler stepped forward. Your Grace, there is someone here asking for Miss Wren. Clara turned. A woman entered, bent with age, wrapped in a plain cloak. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. Mrs. Bell? The old woman nodded, crying. I came because Dr. Harcourt said truth was finally being spoken here. Clara moved toward her. Adrian looked to Harcourt. The doctor explained, Mrs. Bell served in Lord Silas's London house 6 years ago. The old woman looked at Silas with fear, then at Clara. I cleaned the room after your father visited. He argued with Lord Silas. I heard him say the Duke was being kept ill. I heard him say he had sent a letter to Blackthorn. That night, Lord Silas told Lady Morwenna the physician must not reach London again. The room erupted. Silas shouted, Lies! Mrs. Bell flinched but continued. I kept one thing. I was afraid, but I kept it. She removed a small notebook from her cloak. Dr. Wren dropped it near the hearth. I hid it. I did not know how to find his daughter. Clara took the notebook with trembling hands. Her father's handwriting filled the pages. She opened near the end. A final note had been written across the inside cover. Clara, if this reaches you, do not seek revenge. Seek a room too public for them to silence. Her eyes filled. Adrian read the line over her shoulder. Then he lifted his gaze to the crowded hall. Is this public enough, Miss Wren? Clara closed the notebook. Yes, Your Grace. Adrian turned to Lady Morwenna and Lord Silas. You kept me weak. You used my household. You hunted the physician who tried to save me. You brought 30 women before me, hoping one would accept my title without asking why my hands shook when I signed. Silas backed toward the side door. The footman blocked him. Lady Morwenna rose. Her face had lost all softness now. You were never fit for the title, she said. The room went cold. You were too much like your mother, sentimental, trusting, wasteful with mercy. Your father knew it. I knew it. Blackthorn needed a spine. Adrian stared at her. And you appointed yourself. I held this house together while you coughed into handkerchiefs and stared at windows. You made me ill. I made you manageable. The confession struck the room like thunder. Lady Morwenna seemed to hear herself only after the words escaped, but it was done. Adrian's face did not change. He turned to the butler. Send for the magistrate. Dr. Harcourt said, I already did. Another set of footsteps entered the hall. The magistrate came with 2 officers. Silas began talking at once, too fast, too loud, blaming his aunt, blaming physicians, blaming servants, blaming everyone but himself. Lady Morwenna did not beg. She simply looked at Adrian as the officers approached. You will regret this when the house falls into chaos. Adrian glanced at Clara, then at the 30 women who had wanted him, then at the servants who had watched him fade for years. No, he said, chaos was when I trusted you. The officers took Silas first. He struggled, but not bravely. Lady Morwenna walked without resistance. At the doorway, she paused and looked back at Clara. "You think you have saved him?" Clara answered, "No. I gave him back the question. He saved himself by asking it." For the first time all day, Duke Adrian Blackthorne smiled. Not coldly, not cruelly, a real smile, small, exhausted, alive. Weeks later, Blackthorne House was almost unrecognizable. Not because the walls changed. The silence changed. The Duke's meals were no longer prepared behind locked doors. The old household physician disappeared under inquiry. Lord Silas's papers were seized. Lady Morwenna's letters revealed years of careful manipulation. Adrian recovered slowly. Not magically, not in a single sunrise, but each day his mind grew clearer, his hands steadier, his steps firmer. The house no longer dimmed when he entered a room. As for the 30 women, society found ways to soften their embarrassment. It called the event unfortunate, dramatic, distasteful. But no one could forget the 31st. Miss Clara Wren became the woman who had stood in a duke's library and asked the question no one else dared ask. Not why should he marry? Not what title he could give, not how soon he might die. Only this. Why was he still alive? One evening, Adrian found Clara in the restored winter garden, where the locked windows had finally been opened. She stood near the orange trees, reading her father's notebook by the last gold light of day. "You are leaving," he said. She closed the notebook. "I should. I did not ask what you should do." She looked at him carefully. He was still pale, still thinner than he ought to be, but he stood without leaning on a cane. "Then what are you asking?" He stepped closer. "Why do you want to leave?" A faint smile touched her mouth. "That is a dangerous question from you. I have improved my questions." "Yes," she said softly, "you have." He looked at the notebook. "Your father told you not to seek revenge. He told me to seek a room too public for silence. And now? Now I must decide what remains after justice." Adrian nodded. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said, "I asked 30 women why they wanted me because I believed every person who came near me wanted something." Clara looked at him. "And now? Now I know the better question is not always why someone wants you." His voice softened. "Sometimes it is why they are willing to save you when wanting you would be easier." Clara lowered her gaze. "You mistake me for noble." "No, I see you clearly." She looked up again. Adrian did not reach for her hand. He had learned the difference between desire and demand. "I will not ask you to marry a recovering scandal," he said. "I will not ask you to repair this house. I will not ask you to become a duchess because 30 women failed and you did not." Clara's eyes warmed. "What will you ask?" He smiled faintly. "Whether you might stay long enough to see what kind of man I become when I am no longer being poisoned." Clara looked at the open windows, the living trees, the house breathing around them. Then she said, "That is the first answer you have asked for that I cannot give quickly. I can wait." And because he said it without command, without pride, without the arrogance of a man accustomed to being chosen, Clara smiled. "Then live, Your Grace." Adrian's expression softened. "I intend to." Outside, Blackthorne House stood beneath a clear evening sky, no longer a grand tomb dressed as a home. And inside, the Duke, who had asked 30 women why they wanted him, finally understood why the 31st had asked why he was still alive. Because she was the first person in 6 years who cared more about the answer than the title.